Welcome back, yogis. I'm so glad you decided to join me. I hope that today is a bit of a creative class for you. So much of our classes and our practice is spent moving up and down on our mats, back to front. And so today I want to shift our perspective and focus on moving through the single plane by moving side to side instead. So go ahead and find a comfortable seated position. We'll start with some breathing exercises. And then as we move through class today, I want you to imagine that your mat is lined by two walls, and that every time you move through your poses today, that you're trying to stay within those two walls and not accidentally touch them. And that will help you kind of focus on moving through a single plane. Here in your seated position, go ahead and start to lengthen the breath. Maybe you're lucky enough to have a little fur baby hanging out with you while you breathe. If you do, and if they are snuggling up to you, feel free to focus on the sensory experience of this breathing. Notice how your pet feels, how they smell, if they make any noises. Let the love that they have for you wash over you, bring you peace and happiness. If you don't have a pet, you can still focus on your senses and just noticing your surroundings as you breathe. Go ahead and bring your hands to your heart, and then inhale the hands up and over, and exhale to one side. You can rest your hand on the ground or your elbow on the ground, but really focus on keeping the top side open, shoulders stacked. Don't let that top shoulder roll over. Now we're going to make our way over to the other side. So go ahead and walk the hands forward and to the other side, and then roll the opposite top shoulder open, lengthening through the side. Exhale, come back to center. Hands come to your heart, and then inhale, rise up once more. Exhale, other side. So we're still flowing side to side, starting with your opposite side. Noticing how you work through that single plane. Shoulders stay open until you're ready to transition to the other side. Walk yourself through center. And then when you walk to the other side, notice how that top shoulder rolls open to stack. Long line of energy from the hip that's grounded out through the fingertips, opening up the side of the ribs. And then exhale to center. Hands come back to your heart. Inhale, grow tall. And exhale this time, go ahead and fold forward. Release any tension in your hips. Gentle hip opener if your legs are crossed. If you happen to choose hero's pose instead, you'll find yourself in a child's pose. Walk yourself back up to upright and uncross the legs, finding boat pose. You can keep the toes on the ground, or you can extend them out for a bit of a challenge. Now we're going to go through those same side extensions, but using your core to maintain the lift of the legs in boat pose. Inhaling to the sky, and then hands back to your heart center. Drop the heels, drop the shoulders for low boat, and then come back up regular boat. Release and cross the other leg on top. So if you were in a cross-legged position, you can bring the other shin in front, other leg on top, or if you were in hero's pose, feel free to stick with hero's pose. Reach to one side, opening up the top ribs. And then when you're ready, walking the hands first to center, no rush here. Taking a breath in center if you'd like, and eventually making your way to the other side, rolling the shoulder open, maybe bringing the gaze to the sky, making sure you can see past that top arm, and then coming back to center. Exhale, hands to your heart. Inhale, hands sweep up. Exhale, other side. Reaching up and over, creating lots of length, noticing the space in between your ribs as you inhale. Giving your kitty cat or doggy a little head bump. And then walk your hands slowly to the other side, taking a breath in the center if that feels good. So we're really warming up the spine here, creating lots of length, and also slowly easing into the hips. Come back to center, hands to your heart. Inhale, rise up, and exhale, fold. As you fold, try to use your exhales to release the tension in the hips and ease yourself farther forward. Go ahead and make your way back up to upright. Uncross the legs once again and find boat, whichever version works for you. I'm going to challenge myself by extending both the arms and the legs, and then adding that side extension, one side and then the other, really challenging your obliques. Drop low if you can, low boat. Seems I have an extra little challenge here. Somebody decided to make himself right at home, so we're going to go with it. We're going to do a few chest raises with him. Release, come back to center, come back to your cross-legged position, and roll over the ankles, coming into table. Never a dull moment with a pet around. We'll take a couple of cat-cows here. Inhale as you arch, cow belly, maybe feeling a little bit of a stretch in the abdomen from those boat poses, and then exhale, contract the abdomen and round the spine towards the sky. Go ahead and take whatever little wiggles feel good for you throughout the spine, maybe sticking with cat-cow, maybe looking side to side or rolling up and down like I am, whatever feels good on your back. Now, go ahead and bring your spine back to neutral and extend one leg out to the side, remembering that plane from side to side on our mat, and lift the opposite arm up for a twist. Then release the floating hand and walk both hands out, coming into a variation on puppy pose, letting the heart melt towards the ground, opening up the shoulders. Walk the hands back in, keep the extended leg, and open up, coming into an easy version of side plank, supported with that bottom knee. If you'd like to challenge yourself, you can pick up the bottom knee and extend it out in front. And then we'll all roll over into regular plank, taking an inhale in regular plank and then exhaling through to the floor. Inhaling up for our first back bend, take a gentle cobra. Release the back bend and then push your hips up and back to down dog. Take a breath in down dog. And then on your next inhale, pick up one foot. Exhale. You're going to come back to that same variation of side plank. So on the same side, gently releasing the knee back to the ground, walking the hands forward back to puppy pose. And then we'll release and come back to table. Make our way to the other side. Lots of landmines today. He just really wanted to hang out with me. So with the opposite leg extended, twist to the other side, using your core to create the twist. And then release your floating hand and walk both hands out in front. Maybe notice that the chest sinks a little bit deeper towards the ground. Walk the hands back in and then over to the opposite side, finding first that supported version of side plank, and then maybe challenging yourself by picking up the bottom leg, engaging the inner thighs of both legs. The grounded leg is engaging against the floor and the floating leg is engaging against gravity. Come to plank and make your way down to the floor, inhaling up, back bend of your choice, and then release and make your way to down dog. In down dog, feel free to have the knees bent and really focus on lengthening the lower spine, creating one straight line from fingertips to hips. Inhale, the opposite foot floats up. Shift to side plank, same side, whichever variation serves you. Releasing the knee to the ground, and then walking your hands out in front, coming back to puppy. One more breath here, and then walk the hands back in. Bring in the extended knee, table. Take a few more cat-cow breaths if that feels good. You can always rock the spine side to side instead. Oh, I just can't get over doing yoga with a cat. Never a dull moment. Go ahead and extend the legs and come into your first forward fold. And we'll relax here with the arms crossed, maybe rocking side to side, keeping the knees bent as much as necessary, and feeling the release in the lower back. Extend the arms to the ground and slowly walk the feet, heel toe, out to the outside edges of the mat. Rocking side to side, noticing how it feels when you shift your weight to your heels versus when you shift your weight to the toes. Once you're in a wide-legged stance, release the hands and roll forward, maybe resting the forearms on the ground, maybe the crown of the head, depending how warm your legs are. Inhale to a flat back. And on your next exhale, we're going to take that twist again. Inhale deeply, and then exhale to release the hand and walk the hands to the front edge of your mat, coming into low lunge, creating one long line of energy from the heel to the crown of the head. On your next exhale, extend the front leg. Inhale, bend. Exhale, extend. Inhale. On the exhale, you can always pick up the toes, or you can keep the toes on the ground. Maybe you want to play with that to see how it feels. Go ahead and rise up into crescent lunge, and then remember the edges of your mat and that plane that we're working in as we drop the opposite hand towards the front knee, creating a twist. And then opening up the opposite direction for warrior two. On an exhale, reach behind, reverse warrior, and then shift all the way down to the ground, coming back to that low lunge and stepping to plank. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, cobra or up dog if you're ready. Exhale, down dog. Now we're going to move back to the same side. So inhale, same foot that you had in front before, comes up. And slowly make your way back to that wide-legged forward fold. On your next exhale, walk your hands over to the opposite side, starting first in your high lunge, creating that straight line of energy, and then exhaling, shifting back. Straighten the front leg. Bend to release. Straighten to intensify and stretch the hamstring. One more time forward. And shift the hips back, maybe playing with picking up the toes. Shift forward once again and rise up to crescent pose. Taking a breath here, finding your balance, and then on an exhale, creating that twist, making sure the hands stay in that single plane. Inhale back to crescent. Exhale, opening the other direction, warrior two. On your next exhale, reverse your warrior, making sure there's no pressure on that back knee. And then roll all the way forward, inhaling to plank. Exhale through chaturanga. Inhale, cobra or up dog. Exhale, push the hips back, down dog. Working with that same front leg, lift it up on the inhale, split down dog. Exhale, pull it all the way through. And then walk your hands back to center, wide-legged forward fold, shifting your weight ever so slightly into the balls of the feet, and then inhale up with a flat back. Exhale, hands to your heart. Inhale, grow tall. Exhale, hinge forward and fold. Take a breath here. Allow the crown of the head to drop down towards the ground. And then we'll make our way back to one side of the mat. Finding that high lunge, making sure you're not resting too much on the front thigh. Extend, and then bend the front leg. Extend, open up the hamstring, and then bend and reach out through the crown of the head. One more time, extend, and then rebend that front knee. Inhale, come back up to crescent pose. And this time on your exhale, bring the palms together and cross the opposite elbow over that front knee, creating a prayer twist. So unlike the unsupported twist, you might have a little bit more leverage here. Maybe opening up the arms if that feels good. Or you can try for the bind by bringing that floating hand around the back and reaching through the legs. If you do decide to bind, make sure that your shoulders are still open and that you're not rolling the upper body over in order to create the bind. You can always do this with a strap as well, if that makes it a little bit more accessible. Release and come back to crescent pose, and then open up to warrior two. And on your exhale, reverse your warrior. Take a deep breath, and then exhale, roll forward, coming into extended side angle. Now I don't show it here, but you can keep that front arm on your knee if you need to. Otherwise, if you can reach for the ground, maybe try for a bind here as well. Floating arm wraps around your back, bottom arm through the legs, making sure that you're not dropping the shoulders. Release your bind and come back to plank, exhaling through chaturanga, inhaling up dog, exhaling down dog. Inhale, same leg rises up. On an exhale, bring it all the way through and make your way back to that wide-legged forward fold. Releasing the head, let the head hang heavy. Let the head be like a little bit of a weight to pull you down deeper into the pose. When you're ready, walk your hands to the other side, finding high lunge first. Shifting the hips back, pyramid, high lunge, pyramid. And I tend to do an inhale with high lunge and an exhale on pyramid, but really pay attention to your body and whichever movement is tightest, try to match the exhale to that so that you can release the tension. We'll all come up to crescent pose now, and then find the twist on the other side, starting with your prayer twist, Staying here if that feels good, if that feels challenging on your balance. Maybe trying to open up the arms, trying to stack the shoulders. And if that still feels good, taking the floating arm behind the back and trying for the bind. In all three of these options, you can bring your gaze more towards the sky to challenge your balance further. Whichever variation you're in, go ahead and release and slowly make your way back to crescent pose. And then we will open it up to the other side, finding warrior two. On an exhale, reversing, keeping that body in that plane of existence nice and flat in between your two imaginary walls. Releasing forward, finding extended side angle. Keeping the hips open, keeping the shoulders open, maybe trying for the bind. Take one more breath and gently release. Whichever variation you're in, coming back to your high lunge and stepping to plank on the inhale. Exhale. Inhale, back bend. Exhale, down dog. And remember, you can always skip chaturanga if that's too much. Inhale, that same foot floats up. Exhale, step it forward and walk your hands back to center, back to your wide-legged forward fold. Releasing the crown of the head a little bit deeper towards the ground. Maybe wrapping your hands around the outside edges of the feet. And then everyone rising up tall on the inhale, exhale to your heart. Inhale, grow tall, and exhale, fold. So again, from your forward fold, go ahead and walk your hands over to one side, finding the high lunge, not resting on top of the thigh, using your core, and then shifting back and forth between high lunge and pyramid, matching your exhale to the portion of this movement that feels the tightest. Really using the exhale to release and enjoy the stretch wherever you feel it most. Rise up, but this time drop the back foot coming into warrior one. And on your exhale, extend the front leg and open up the arms, reaching that front arm towards the foot and then tilting at the last moment, coming into revolve triangle. If you need to shorten your stance like I did, you can. I want your focus here to be on squaring the hips and allowing the squared hips to create the twist. Go ahead and windmill the hands up, coming into a straight-legged reverse warrior. And then coming forward into regular triangle. Remembering those planes. Don't let that top hip roll forward in triangle just so that you can reach the ground. Grab a block if you need to. Rest your hand on your shin. Or if you feel comfortable, try an unsupported triangle, challenging your core. Release the floating hand to the ground, square the hips again, and then bend the front knee and inhale to plank. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, up dog. Exhale, use the abs to push back, down dog. Same foot floats up. Exhale, bring it all the way through, high lunge, and then walking yourself back to center, back to your wide-legged forward fold. Taking a full cycle of breath here, and then making your way to the other side. Hands on either side of that front foot. Inhaling, high lunge, exhale, pyramid. Moving back and forth, really focusing on squaring the hips when you're in pyramid, preparing for that revolve triangle on this side. The more you square the hips, the more you'll have the range of motion to twist through the spine. So go ahead and set yourself up by coming into warrior one. And then create the twist, straighten the front leg, reach out with those front fingertips as far as you can to have lots of length in the spine, and then at the last moment, hinge forward, keeping the shoulders stacked, fingertips stacked, grabbing a block if you need it, and then windmilling the hands up and reversing, opening up the top side, and then shifting into triangle. Reach as far forward as you can with the front fingertips. Maybe shift the hips back slightly, and then just allow the arms to tilt where they may. Try the unsupported triangle, maybe bringing one hand forward, maybe both. Maybe just keeping the hands perpendicular to the ground, but floating the hands next to the thigh. Go ahead and release, squaring off the hips again and inhaling to plank. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, up dog. And exhale, down dog. Same foot floats up on the inhale. And exhale, step it all the way through to high lunge. And then walk the hands back to center, finding that forward fold again. If you walked the feet in for revolve triangle, you may need to walk them out again. It's up to you. Find your intensity by engaging the upper body, wrapping around the ankles or the outside of the feet, drawing the crown of the head to the ground, and then inhale to the sky and exhale to your heart. Inhale. Exhale, fold once again. From here, again, let that head hang heavy. Maybe you're starting to notice that you're connecting the crown of the head with the ground as you get a little bit warmer and can open up the hamstrings. Walk the hands over to one side again, and let's rock back and forth between our high lunge and our pyramid. Maybe playing a little bit more with picking up the toes and noticing how that changes the sensations. One more time, shifting the hips back, and then coming forward into lizard. So if you need to soften up or double up your mat for your back knee, feel free to do that. Let's take a twist first, opening up the heart, and then releasing both hands to the inside of the foot and maybe coming down onto the elbows. Really squeezing in the knee of that front leg towards the shoulder. Don't let it splay out. And then take that same hand as the front leg and reach it up and back, maybe grabbing a hold of the back foot. Noticing that the shoulders are now stacked in that single plane. So not only is this a hip opener, but you're also getting a little bit of openness through the heart as you reach for that back foot. Release, bringing both hands or both elbows square to the front of the mat, and then making your way up slowly to a plank position. You can add a little extra core work here by creating some hang time with that front knee, but eventually make your way through your vinyasa. There's lots of different variations you can do there. You can take an arm balance if that feels good. So from down dog, inhale, pick up one foot, and exhale, bring that foot all the way through, but this time we're going to bring the shin through and find pigeon pose. That back leg should be straight down the back of your mat. Again, remembering that single plane. Try to square the hips to the front of the mat so that neither hip is rolling one side or the other. They're both equidistant from the floor. And then if you'd like to challenge yourself, bring the hands towards the sky. Engage the back to point the fingertips as straight up to the sky as you can. Of course, you do need some openness in your hips to do this, but I really want you to focus on strengthening the back. Go ahead and release. That front foot comes back to plank. Take a couple of push-ups here if you want the extra challenge. I was really feeling good this day. Or you can take a traditional vinyasa and make your way to down dog. Same foot floats up, split down dog on the inhale. Go ahead and allow the hip to roll open now. And we're going to make our way into wild thing if that feels good. Or you can just focus on opening up the hip. If you're coming to wild thing, that foot starts to feel really heavy until it connects with the ground and you flip your gaze for wild thing. And then make your way back to split down dog. And on an exhale, we're going to bring the foot all the way through, high lunge, and make our way back to center for that wide-legged forward fold. One full cycle of breath here. Inhale and exhale. And then walk your hands over either side of the other front leg, working back and forth between pyramid and high lunge. And notice how this is an amazing prep both for lizard and for pigeon. We're opening up the hip flexor when we shift forward into high lunge. And we're opening up the back of the hip and the hamstring when we shift back to pyramid. Go ahead and double up your mat if you need to on the other side, softening the knee to the ground. Let's take a twist first. Opening up the heart, allowing the hips to ease forward towards the ground. And then as you release the twist, that floating hand comes to the inside of the foot. Maybe stay on the hands or maybe drop down to the elbows. You can also always put the elbows on a block. Stay here as long as you'd like. Or if you would like to grab a hold of that back foot like the other side, start to roll the shoulders open and then pick up the foot of the back leg, reaching behind, grabbing a hold of the foot or wrapping a strap around it, stacking the shoulders, opening up the heart, and just feeling there's so many things opening here. You've got the quad of the back leg, the hip flexor of the back leg, the glute and the hip of the front leg. It's a heart opener. So many things working at once. Come back to lizard and make your way back up onto the hands, tucking the toes of the back foot and inhaling to plank. On your next exhale, shift through chaturanga into up dog. Exhaling, down dog. Pick up that same foot, reach high to the sky, reach out through the heel, and then exhale, bring the shin forward, finding pigeon on the other side. And remember, we're not folding forward in pigeon here. Instead, we're trying to engage the upper back and keep the upper body as much upright as you can. Maybe challenging yourself by taking away the support and reaching the fingertips towards the sky, bringing your gaze towards the fingertips. Squeeze with the upper back. And then release. Tuck the back toes again and step to plank. And if you want to take a couple of push-ups again, you can, or you can just flow through your vinyasa. Or you can say, forget it, I'm tired, I'm going straight to down dog. All of those are fabulous options. Again, pick up the same foot, hips start square, and then roll the hips open. Let that floating foot start to feel heavy, pulling the kneecap towards the sky, and then dropping all the way back into wild thing. Just one breath here in wild thing, and then we will shift back to split down dog, and on an exhale, bring the foot all the way through, high lunge, making your way back to that wide-legged forward fold. And maybe just resting and relaxing, releasing the crown of the head towards the ground, or wrapping the hands around the outside edges of the feet, or grabbing a hold of the big toes in a yogi toe lock and pulling yourself a little deeper. Go ahead and release ever so slightly. Walk the hands out in front and come into a wide-legged downward dog. Not quite so much pressure on your shoulders, but still the same amount of openness. Now, just like we did at the beginning of class, we're going to heel toe our feet all the way back together. Again, playing with the weight, pushing into the hands as if you were going to press into a handstand, and then shifting back into the heels. Come back to your forward fold and bend the knees, relax the hips towards the heels, and find your balance on the toes. Open up the knees wide and bring the hands in between the knees, walking the hands out in front, dropping the hips back to the heels, and opening up the knees for a nice deep hip opener. Walk yourself back up to upright, knees come back together, and then gently sit back behind you, opening up your knees and that same hip opener, but now you're seated. Soles of the feet are together. Let the hips roll open, knees drop heavy towards the ground. Soles of the feet maybe open up ever so slightly. You can keep your hands behind you for support and really focus on having a nice long spine to open up those hips. Or if you'd like, you can grab a hold of the soles of the feet. Draw the elbows into the inside of the knees or the inside of the thighs, and maybe pull yourself forward. But don't sacrifice length in the spine for pulling yourself forward. Wrap your hands around the feet and engage the upper back so that the feet now float off the ground. Engage the core to maintain your balance. Notice how the weight in the feet pulls your shoulders away from your ears. You might get a nice stretch down the sides of your neck. And then play with extending one foot. Keep your balance. Keep the spine long. Maybe switch sides. Extend the other foot. Again, not collapsing. So the spine is still very, very long and tall, shoulder blades flat on your back. And then maybe you try for both. And you can do this grabbing a hold of the outside edges of the feet or using a yogi toe lock instead. Whatever you choose, bring the feet together, gently release the hands, and find boat pose. With lots of control, slowly lower the feet to the ground, hover, and then release, bringing the soles of the feet together again. But this time, walk your heels out so they're about a foot, foot and a half from your hips. Inhale towards the sky, and then exhale, release forward with a long spine. So the first time that we took this butterfly pose, you should feel it much more in your inner thighs and hips. But now with the heels pushed a little farther away from you, you should feel it a little bit more in your lower back and the backs of your hips or your glutes. Everyone's a little different, but you should notice a pretty distinct change in the sensations that you feel between the two different variations. Go ahead and pick up the feet again, balancing with the soles of the feet together, letting the weight of the feet open up the shoulders and the neck, rolling the shoulder blades down the back, engaging the abs, and then opening up both feet again for that wide-legged boat pose. Really focus on using your core to maintain your balance so that you don't roll behind you or release your feet. Bring the soles of the feet together, or the ankles rather, and come back into boat pose. gently with control, lowering the feet to the ground, and then opening up them wide as possible. And we're going to come into straddles. So the wide-legged splits. Go ahead and start to walk your way forward using your breath. Inhaling to really lengthen the spine, and then exhaling, shift forward. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, shift. So you're not straining or pushing or pulling or forcing yourself forward. You're just letting the exhale release tension and the upper body fall where it may. Go ahead and walk your hands over to one side and wrap the hands around your ankle or the sole of your feet, whatever you can reach, and try to align the upper body as much as you can with the top of that thigh. Release ever so slightly so you can bring that same elbow to the inside of the thigh, and inhale the opposite arm up and over. Again, remembering that imaginary plane, those two walls that you're trying to work inside, so that the shoulders stay stacked and the hips are open as much as possible. Release and walk yourself back to center. Maybe notice you can walk the fingertips a little farther forward in that straddle position. And then when you're ready, we're going to walk our way over to the other side. First, squaring up the upper body with the top of that thigh, making sure your opposite hip doesn't roll away from the ground. We want that hip to still stay grounded. And the more you engage the upper body and pull the upper body flush with the top of the thigh, the more you'll find a bit of a stretch in the lower back of that top side. Release the intensity on that fold and roll yourself up and over, shifting more into a side stretch. And you can always do gate pose with the opposite knee or the free knee bent instead. But either way, you really want the shoulders to stay stacked and open. Make sure you can see past that top arm. And if you can't quite reach the toes, that's perfectly fine. Just continue reaching up and over, opening up the heart. Release and bring yourself back to the front, folding forward one more time in these straddle splits. Deep inhale and exhale. Go ahead and walk your way back up to upright. Grab a hold behind the knees and gently pull them together for one more boat. Knees can stay bent, or you can challenge yourself by extending the legs. This is our last little core strengthener, so you do what is best for you. And then go ahead and release. And we are going to take a few little arm balances as we walk over to the long edge of our mat. You can always skip that and just move over to the long edge of your mat, rolling down. We're going to take a couple of bridge poses here. If there is another inversion that you would prefer to take, please feel free. Otherwise, walk the heels in towards the hips, knees towards the sky, and roll the hips up and then back down. We're going to take a couple of rolling movements. So inhale, roll the spine up one vertebrae at a time into bridge. Exhale, contract the belly and roll it down one vertebrae at a time. Nice and slow, long movements, articulating each individual vertebrae in the spine. This time, as you roll up, go ahead and walk the feet in a little bit closer and maybe grab a hold of the ankles if you can. If you can't quite reach the ankles, feel free to instead interlock the fingers underneath the body. Either way, I want you to really push the hips towards the sky and almost over the shoulders, as though you were trying to leap from bridge pose into a shoulder stand. We're not going to do that, of course. Just think about having that alignment. Release and roll your back down to the ground. Knees come towards the chest. Give yourself a hug. And then we're going to take an easy twist. So drop the knees to one side. Take your gaze to the other side so that you're twisting all the way from the lumbar through the cervical spine. If you want a little more intensity, you can stretch those legs long, bringing the toe tips up to the same plane as your shoulders. And then on your next exhale, squeeze with the belly to bring the knees back to center, using your core to move them back to center, not your shoulders. Give yourself a hug, and then bring the hands to a T and rock the knees over to the other side. Again, you can keep the knees bent for a bit of an easier twist, or you can lengthen the legs. Either way, bring your gaze to the opposite side so you're twisting all the way up and down the spine. 1 or 2 more breaths here, feeling the intensity of the twist increase as you inhale, and then easing and relaxing into the twist, maybe getting a couple of pops on your exhale. On your next exhale, again using your core, bring the feet back to center, bend the knees, bring the knees towards your chest. Give yourself a rock side to side if that feels good. And then open up the knees wide so that the thighs are on either side of your rib cage, and squeeze the knees towards your armpits. Keeping the knees in close towards your armpits, bring the soles of the feet so they're parallel with the sky, and find happy baby. You can rock side to side here if that feels good, or you can stay centered and just focus on drawing the tailbone down towards the mat, pulling your shoulders into their sockets and lengthening the spine. Release your hold on the feet and bring the soles of the feet together, knees wide, finding that same butterfly pose except now on your back, continuing to lengthen the sides of the neck. And then gently release your hold on the feet and let the feet, soles still together, come to the ground, knees fall open. Find one final hip opener. And then eventually make your way to Shavasana. If you'd like to stay in this hip opener for a few more breaths, that's fine. But eventually close out in a traditional Shavasana so that there's no compression anywhere in the body. And while you're in Shavasana, I want you to think again about that one single plane that you used for most of your practice today. That plane should now be intersecting the center of your body, and you should find a sense of symmetry between the two sides of your body. In yoga, we know that a lot of times one side is stronger or more flexible than the other. But here in this resting and recovery pose, I want you to focus on feeling the similarities, feeling the symmetry between the two. As we practice, our goal is to find balance between the two sides and bring those differences more in alignment. Continue to stay in Shavasana, breathing, enjoying this last moment of recovery. Stay here as long as you'd like. I hope you enjoyed this slightly different style of practice, different perspective of practice today. I hope you can continue using that sense of working through a single plane, either rotating around it, arching back and forth on the axis, just being aware of that plane. Again, I hope you enjoyed that perspective. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Namaste.